Week time. Might have to run that again. It's
We all on. We can speak.
the mic is on.
Link is on.
What up, what up? This is your boy Big Ruck.
Brother Los.
Brother Roy.
Brother Jam.
Yeah, here we go.
The Daily Smoke. We are back for episode 106, man. So what's up?
There we are.
Yeah, man. How everybody feeling?
Good, brother. What's the good word? Good
Man,
man.
everything good, man.
I'm
Everything
scared.
good.
I'm scared. We going to war, y'all. Right? We going to war, y'all. Ukraine, here we come.
No,
Fuck around if you want to.
You might not be wrong about that.
I know.
Right.
They gonna do shit.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about the sedition of the Oathkeepers tonight, along with some other things. You know how we always kick it around a little bit before we get started. So we're gonna get into that in a little bit, man. But everybody good?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yes, sir. It's a crazy weekend, man, in sports. It
Yeah,
was a crazy weekend, especially if you follow the NFL.
yeah.
It was some nail biters. Like, I think Brother Los,
Almost
they
every
said the Chiefs versus the Bills
That
was
was-
an instant classic, huh?
It was in with the overtime. I remember watching because I'm with the Bills I'm actually with LA this year. I want LA and the Bills to be in the Super Bowl. So it's like Kansas City scored, like, oh man, it's almost over. Like, damn. Did something else, turn around. Bill do scored. I'm like, oh shit, I missed that. And then it went to over. And then 12 seconds left. They bring it down, kick it, tied up. Let's go to overtime. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man.
Yes, sir.
It just kept going. Like, these dudes don't. It's like, no, you're not. We're going, not you. No.
Yeah.
That
And
to
then
all New York
Yep.
teams
And then
in every
yeah,
sport.
right?
So who won the fight?
So
Sorry.
Yeah.
I believe
man.
my boy won the fight, but they gave it to the champion because when you beat the champion, you got to beat the champion, you know.
Right.
But they made a bad call in the fight before that, and the championship ended up changing hands in that weight division. I thought I was tripping, but Chael Sonnen, he's like one of those respected voices in MMA.
Yeah.
He came on. He predicted that the people that won would win, but he was upset because he said, hey man, the judges got both of those wrong.
Yeah.
So he was really upset as well as myself behind that. But you know, it is what it is. So Francis, you know, he keeps on moving, man. He got the championship, and I think he's gonna fight Tyson Fury next for about $100 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
As long
So
as he's still getting his pay.
Yeah. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's two big niggas. That was boring.
yeah. Well, it's not that it was boring.
Alright.
What you had was
Y'all whoop
you
each
had
other's
two
ass.
people that was neutralizing each other.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah.
I know what your
Pretty much,
strength is, and you know what my strength is, and neither one would play to that weakness. You know what I mean? So that they wouldn't get tapped out or they wouldn't get knocked out. So
Okay.
it was really a game of chess.
They was really well matched for each other.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
The fight before
Absolutely.
though, them niggas was fucked up. Both
Weren't
of
they,
them.
boy?
They both were messed up.
Weren't
I was
they?
like, ooh, them dudes were kicking each other's ass. Like, man, like, and he'd come back. One of them moments were like, yeah, he's gone. Damn.
Right.
Oh shit, he got it.
Yeah,
Right.
Oh damn.
I had
Back. I'm
completely
like,
forgot
shit.
that with my Hulu subscription and stuff, I got an ESPN in there with the Disney Plus and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got home Saturday, when I got home on my Hulu, it was showing the prelims,
Right.
the preliminary fights.
Right.
So I was able to actually catch the last preliminary fight by the time I got home, and I was getting into it, and I'm not even paying attention. You know, it's like, okay, about to go to, you know, pay-per-view, and then it just went blank, and I was like, wait, where's the next fight?
Yeah.
Where's the next fight?
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
damn, okay.
Yeah.
They only told you half. Hulu got sports.
Right.
Yeah.
For a little bit till you pay.
That's how they really in, boy.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Next time, then you're going to have me sitting up here thinking, do I want to pay this extra
Right.
money for this pay-per-view?
That's what it was. 13,
Mahomes
12,
is
13.
Neo.
Yeah,
The
I'm telling
one.
you. Yeah.
13 seconds.
For
That's
real,
what's
man.
up.
He ain't lying. That's how it happened. He come back quick.
That's what's up.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's all right. LA gonna win it all anyway. Fuck all
You
that.
think so? You think
I've
LA
been
got it?
rolling with LA since the beginning of the year.
I respect that.
And I'm a Steeler fan, but I've been rolling with LA to begin. That's why I said LA and the Bills. That should be the Super Bowl this year.
I hope LA
but
goes
it's not.
because you're gonna have LA
At home.
as a home team
That's
in
right.
the NFL Super Bowl, and then you have West Coast artists headlining the halftime show.
Right.
I'm all about that.
Yeah.
I'm
That's-
all
That
about
was a
that.
good choice.
Yeah.
So
that's a
far,
good
we
one.
think it's no choice. We'll see what happens.
I think it's gonna be lame, but okay, cool.
Only
you
because
know,
only because we're used to the music. You know.
right? You want to hit the
They,
curse?
they talk that shit, but you know, they can't do it. If you won't allow,
Right.
you won't allow me to show a nipple, we're not allowing you to say nigga and fuck this shit and these nuts and shit like that, like we're used to with their music.
Yeah,
So,
man.
no, they're gonna come hard, man. Watch.
Hell
think
yeah,
so?
they
That's
gonna
Dr.
come
It's just
Dre.
gonna be a lot of
That's
bleeping.
Dr.
Yeah,
Dre.
they gonna come
Oh,
on.
That's
It's just going to be a lot of bleeping. That's
Nah,
all.
listen.
If anything, the music is gonna be dope. I'm
Yeah,
good with that.
have it.
Thank you, Burley. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you, man.
Damn,
man.
thanks,
Thank
man.
you so much,
Yeah,
brother.
nice,
Uh,
man.
nice.
But
You get a
shit,
mask
much
too?
respect, man.
Did you get a
Much
mask
respect.
too?
Yeah.
Somebody got a
Half of
shirt
them
and a
words that they used to couldn't say, you can say on TV now. So
That's
Right.
true.
mask.
That's
But not
true.
at the Super Bowl.
That's true.
Man, if you throw enough money at anything, you can say it. Trust me.
Right?
True.
Yeah, they gonna. I
Indeed.
know they gonna come with it.
Yeah, they're gonna. It's gonna
He
be.
said
It's
Snoop
too
Dogg.
big of an opportunity.
The music is gonna come
You know
hard
what I'm
anyway.
saying?
Uh-huh.
And think about what rests on the line. Jay-Z's name is resting on that shit.
Mhm.
Because he fought for that shit. You
Good
know what
for
I'm
him,
saying?
good.
And now he's putting those artists in place that he said he was going to put in place. He was going to, like, put our people on there. You
Good,
know, just the
good.
good artists and shit on there, man. And he doing it. So they got to come with it because they got to prove that it's worth it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a damn shame that we have to.
Come on, man. You know
I
that.
mean,
You know how that
I'm
goes.
just saying it as a general principle. You know, it's a damn shame that we have to do everything we do 3 times as good just to even be in the running of doing shit like that. You know what I'm saying? It's this constant struggle that it takes to be black in this country. You know.
It's uphill, bro.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
At least we get
Yeah,
to see
man.
that shit though.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You know.
Because that's damn sure gonna be a good show.
Yeah.
Nah,
Did
nah.
y'all see the little pre
That
thing
was cool.
that
No,
they
I
did?
didn't see it.
Oh yeah, it's pretty
That was
dope.
cool. I was
man.
like,
Oh,
damn.
okay.
I was
very
like,
dope.
is that Eminem
Very
Buster?
dope. Yeah, I know, right?
I'm like, damn. I'm like, that's like Eminem Bust.
Right.
See, like, what even going on?
Mbust.
Mbust. Yeah.
Mbust.
Mbust.
I like the lineup too because it's like Kendrick Lamar. That's pretty much still popular. I mean, this is
Yeah,
young white boy.
yeah.
Gotta get the white people in there, you know. Plus this part of it. Then you got Snoop. Everybody knows Snoop because of his
Right.
shows and
Right.
shit. And this Dr. Dre is just Dr. Dre.
Man, Snoop is literally everywhere nowadays.
Good
It's like
for
you.
Mm-hmm.
Snoop is not a rap figure no more.
Nah.
Snoop is an entertainment
He's-
figure.
yeah,
He's a
icon.
celebrity.
He's a
He's
celebrity.
an icon.
Yeah.
He's bigger than just a regular.
Snoop is a brand all onto himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey man, you gotta tip your hat to the brother because
Absolutely.
he stayed. Not only has he stayed in the game, but he stayed on top of the game. You got to realize, and he started in the industry when he was real young, and that's
Yeah.
usually when it's real easy to fuck up.
Right.
You know,
Right.
how many artists do we know that got hooked on drugs, blew all their money, and then, you know, oh, I'm not making no more albums. Snoop not only has consistently made albums and made albums that financially did well, but he also has made movies. You know, he's kept his name out there.
Right.
And now he's branched off into what? He's got his own dispensaries.
Yep.
He's got all kinds of other businesses, so he's literally a businessman.
Yeah.
Him and Shaq, I give mad respect to for them being able to diversify their hustles.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah, Shaq
especially
is
when
a
you in that
right.
when you in that position and you got that kind of money to where you can really do some things. That's the kind of shit you're supposed to do.
Right on.
And outside of that, they still give back and do stuff like
Yeah.
Snoop is a coach
Mm-hmm.
for a
Little league team.
You know
He
what
started
I'm
his
saying?
own little league, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
He
man.
started his own league.
I know that Oscar. I see what you said up there, Oscar. But I'm a Prince fan. No one will ever
Right,
beat that
right.
performance.
Master P.
Ever.
Yeah, that's right.
You know?
Master P gave a lot of people the blueprint, man.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true. That's
he gave
true.
a lot of people the
Yeah.
blueprint.
I was never a huge fan of his, but
Yeah,
you gotta respect his
Man,
business
you got
acumen.
to.
He did
Yeah,
that
He
shit.
even had a travel agency.
Master
Uh,
P?
Yeah,
Wow.
'cause that's what I do. And I remember seeing something. He had a travel agency in New Orleans. I forget what it was the name of it. He had so
Hey,
many
man.
different businesses, man.
Nobody has more businesses than Master
He
P.
had
I
man.
had every time I turn around, it's something that he making toilet tissue now.
Wow.
Gotta
Dog,
keep making that money.
everything.
Good
That
move.
boy,
Good move.
yeah, man, he is capitalizing on. He capitalized on everything,
Good move.
and he giving everybody the blueprint. We all need to be doing that
I
shit.
know.
Man, isn't it
Once you got
interesting?
money, spend it on more business.
Right.
Isn't it interesting how all of us are old enough to remember this? There was a time in our history, in our culture, where rap music only had 1 hour per week.
Yep.
That was it, and that was your
Yep.
MTV Raps.
Yep.
Then you saw BET come on board, and then they started putting out, like, what was it, Rap City or something?
Yeah.
So then we had 2 hours a week. And to go from that to as big
To
as
changing
hip hop
the
is
world.
across the world now, and it's influenced the world's sound. It's a beautiful
It's
evolution.
everywhere.
man.
It's in
Very
commercials
beautiful,
and it's
man.
They didn't give rap 10 years.
I refer to our generation as first generation hip hop. You know, when I talk to my kids about it, like I say, you have to understand that I was there when hip hop came into being.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm a part of that generation.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, of course, being down south, we caught it a little bit later, but you know, we was still there.
Right on.
You know, we caught that first wave of it, and we've been able to sit back and not only listen to the critics when it first came out and say, oh, this, like you said, oh, it won't last 10 years. That's just a fad. It's a phase and whatever. You know, 10, 15 years max.
Right.
Yeah.
Hell, I'm from straight up. I need love.
You know?
Straight up rap.
Yeah.
You know, LL and the Grandmaster.
Right?
Yeah.
I remember when
Yeah.
that stuff used to still play
First
on the
came
radio,
on.
man. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
Right.
Yes.
You know,
Right.
First hearing that.
Double Dutch Bus.
Yeah, man. Rappers do.
Oh, dude, that was one of my favorite songs back in the day.
Yeah, man.
Oh, okay. Your namesake, Bobby Jimmy. Yeah.
Oh, right.
And my cousin.
Right.
Matter of fact,
Right.
we told y'all, he the one that brought y'all the new cassettes. Like, yo, check
Right.
these
You're
dudes.
right.
Check these dudes out, y'all.
Tony Loc.
Hey, he is older than all.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He was gonna hip y'all to that.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It's crazy.
KTSU.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
Oh.
What's that? That's like a
That's
station they used to.
radio.
Yeah,
That's all they played.
It's
Back
like
when
college
DJ Cypher
radio
used to
station.
do the Saturdays.
Yes, man.
Ooh.
Yes.
That was a musical education back then, boy.
Man,
Yeah.
You know,
so much
you-
history, dog.
You
Yeah.
sit back and just listen to that, you'd be like, and of course a lot of it was old school stuff. You know, when he played the originals and the samples and stuff. A lot of it was old school stuff that I might have been familiar with. But every once in a while, he'd throw something in there. You'd be like, oh, that's where that came from. And I'd be like, oh, damn, okay.
Mhm.
Next thing you know, I'm off on a tangent. I'm going to look up Count Basie and, you know, stuff like this and trying to find out more music from these, you know,
Mhm.
different artists. So it was that shit was really a musical education for me back in the
I used to
day.
do that with my daughter, so as she started listening to more music. I wasn't, especially with West Coast, and I'd be listening to. I said, check this out. I'm like, go get a record out. How you know that's where they got it from?
Right.
That song is this song. So
Right.
I'm hearing it.
Right.
I'm hearing it. I'm jamming like. But as you're singing the rap, I'm over here singing the the Parliament version.
Yeah.
Because it's the same music. So
Yeah.
I'm singing One Nation. You're over there rapping.
Yeah.
But that's where she
Every
got. Oh, is
time
that
one
where
of
they
my
come
daughters
from?
do that, man. Every time one of my daughters playing something and it's a beat that came from something earlier, I always do that.
Yep.
I do the same thing. You know, they
Put it
came
up.
from such and such.
Right.
Really? Yep. Listen.
I was like, oh, is that? I was like, how do you get that, Dad?
Yeah.
What do you mean? I had it way before you did.
Right.
That's where it came from. This is where they got it. This ain't new music.
Yeah,
Like, nah,
I
it's,
think
it's
he did that.
like hip hop taught y'all how to recycle music.
Right.
Shoot.
Right.
Ask James Brown.
But
You know what I mean? Most
Hey.
heavily sampled
Man.
artist ever.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's like his music was made perfectly for sampling.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Drums, woo! Them drums, boy. Them drums
Yeah.
and them horns.
Even his hit miss, his ad libs was
Yeah.
like
Man.
sampleable. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
That's why I got into West Coast rap deeper because they used Parliament.
Yeah.
They used all the jazz,
All the old
artists
funk.
that I used to listen
Yeah.
to. So so I was like, I know these jams, boy. So most of the time I'd listen to jam, and about the only other part where I would know in the song is the hook. That's it. I don't know what he's saying in between, but I know the hook and the jam. That's it.
You're about the same age as my oldest brother. And he just made 60, and he used to listen to a lot of Parliament Funkadelics
Yeah.
and George Clinton and all of that stuff back in the day.
Funk
So
shit.
when I was
That's a real
when
cameo
we
and
used
shit.
to like clean up on Saturday mornings, that was the music that he was playing on his, because he was at the time he had a job, so he had like this stereo system in the house back when a stereo in your house was a big thing,
Right.
you know. But he had this big stereo, and it had like the record and the 8-track, and it had, I think it was so fancy, it had a cassette player, you know. But that was like, oh wow, you know, big
You
deal.
have to reel to reel and shit. It'd be 8 hours in the
Oh shit! If he had had a reel to reel, I'd have lost my mind.
Yeah, that's 8
But we'd
hours.
listen to music on that kind of radio in the house, and it was because it was his stereo. He was in charge of the music,
Right.
so very often we spent all day listening to a lot of funk stuff. And so it's just like growing up. Not only was I fascinated with the music, but then the album covers, man. The fucking album covers back on
Especially
those
the Ohio
albums
player ones.
was so.
They
Oh
would have that
man,
fine
was
with the honey
so.
all over it.
Oh
Right.
man, those
Right.
album
Right.
covers,
Right.
dude,
Too,
the
right.
the
Yeah.
artwork on like a Parliament Funkadelic album with Sir Nose
Yeah.
devoid of funk, and you had him
Right.
with
That
these
shit
crazy
and
suits
shit.
on and
That's
these suits and spaceships and shit. Man, I was fascinated,
I was
Yeah,
too.
that's
I used to
cool.
love that shit, man.
fascinated.
It was a dude down the street. He was like a older play brother and shit. And his name was Brian. Remember Brian? Say what? He used to play all of that shit. Like my mom would go places and his mom would babysit me. So I'd be in the room with him chilling, and he was always playing nothing but that shit, man. Always playing that shit.
Can't go wrong now, man.
Yeah, man. He used to have all of these pictures on the wall that he drew of Parliament and shit like that.
Oh, damn.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. It was
Real
dope,
Just need the
man.
black light.
Yeah, he had that too. He
With all
had
the
that
pictures,
too.
Yeah. And the lava
Yeah,
lamp
that
in the
too.
corners.
I remember when I first got a black light in my
We need that
bedroom.
picture of the black naked chick with the afro and the
Man.
breasts that glow in the dark.
Right.
Yes!
Right.
We need that, man.
Right.
We need
Okay,
that. Find it,
I'm
man.
gonna try to Google that and see if I can find it.
Yeah.
My mama had one. She's like, I had them. Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
I used to look at it all the time. Yeah, you did. Don't get amnesia now. It was right over your bed. And you know her being a woman. I ain't had no other naked woman in my house. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, yep, Larry Graham, Grand Central Station. Hell yeah.
Yeah,
I remember
man.
all that. He was the
So-
baddest bass player of all time. Larry
Oh,
Graham was
yeah,
the- Hell
yeah.
yeah, I agree with that.
What's
Yeah,
up, LaBelle?
shit.
Thank you for supporting
Yeah.
this brother in
What's
your
up,
attendance,
man?
man.
Most definitely. Everybody,
Appreciate
please, man, y'all go check out the Dadcast podcast,
Yes,
man.
yes.
Please do, man. Most definitely. Appreciate your support all the time, my brother.
Absolutely. Man, y'all switching subjects on something that Lowe's had brought up earlier, man. Y'all been watching what's going on in the world lately in terms of like geopolitical, disagreements among all these different nations and like these pretexts for war. Y'all been paying attention to what's happening?
I've been seeing some things about like the stuff going on with like Russia and stuff like that.
Okay.
I honestly haven't been keeping up with it though. I've been Most of the stuff I've been focused on been more domestic than international, though.
Right on.
So yeah.
What about you, brothers?
I hear from you.
Yeah, I heard him
And then
talking
I go
about it.
like, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I watched the video about it, but I didn't really like
Oh,
it.
Lord.
That's really.
We're in a very precarious state, man. I can't lie. I have a friend of mine that's in the intelligence community, and he says that everything that we're about to discuss, he says all of that is basically just a show of force.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And he is a very reputable individual, okay? My only concern is this is one hell of a game of poker. If it is that, this is one hell of a game of poker, because what you have right now, we have 8,500 troops on standby to be deployed to the Ukraine.
Yeah.
We have approximately 600 Tier 1 operators in the Ukraine on the ground right now. 600 Tier 1 operators. Putin has 100,000 across the border. I don't know if people really know how we got to this point, but basically, long story short, Ukraine used to be a part of the Soviet Union.
Right.
When the Soviet Union broke up in '91, you overnight had almost like 9 or 10 other nuclear powers on the planet immediately. Because when the Soviet Union occupied them, that's where the silos were. When they broke up, they disarmed them, the nuclear weapons, what have you. And now the Ukraine is trying to be a sovereign state, and Russia is saying basically, no, you belong to us. It's the same exact thing in China with Taiwan. Same exact thing, okay?
Yeah.
All right. So they've been having these diplomatic talks, they failed. Talks failed, etc. And Putin's whole point is, I cannot have you that close to me. If the Ukraine goes to NATO and they're already putting up, I guess, ICBMs, if you will, along the border, because I think we had an issue with Turkey doing that, and Putin didn't like it. But he's saying if the Ukraine becomes a part of NATO, effectively the U.S. is at my doorstep. I can't have that. And I don't blame him. I'm not saying he's right. I'm just saying when the tides was turned during the Cold War, we had that same exact issue with Cuba.
Yeah.
And we almost went to war, full-scale nuclear war, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Well, right, in Hong Kong, exactly. So, but they've annexed Hong Kong. Hong Kong is going back to China, I think, in another 5 or 6 years, and they are already making preparations for it. But that was in their agreement with Britain.
Yeah.
But this situation here is starting to escalate, and it's getting dangerous because Putin has reinforced his relationships with Russia, with North Korea, with Iran. And they are now almost back in the day. Remember, you had the Axis coalition? Think of them almost like the Axis. The Allied coalition, we now have strengthened our relations with Australia and the UK to deal with what's going on in the Ukraine and Russia. While this is going on, one of the things that you have to play back in your head is, oh, now I see why we got out of Afghanistan. Because we can't fight a war on so many different fronts.
True. Okay.
I mean, we can, it's highly ill-advised.
Right.
Now, when they did that, China starts making moves towards Taiwan. I was looking at Australia's version of 60 Minutes. Australia has been preparing their citizens to say, hey, look, we might have a problem with these people within the next 6 months. During that time, there was also a lot of media coming out. Individuals in China were stocking up on food and rations and what have you. So we really, the common person, we really didn't know what was going on.
Okay.
Now we see what's going on. Just today, China sent over 37 fighter jets to Taiwan. Another 30, I think 39 boats, if you will, to Taiwan, conducting military drills, as they say, or war games, if you will. That's a hell of a game of poker you playing.
Right.
Because now we're sending out armed forces saying, hey, look, if you all try anything, this is going to be our response, to your aggression. So now you have the U.S. World Police having to deal with the Ukraine issue in Russia and this issue with China in the South China Sea and near Taiwan. So we're in some very precarious times, brothers. I highly recommend you guys pay attention what's going on.
You know what that just made me think about, though? If you think about what makes that situation even more dangerous, is Biden's unpopularity right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because very often these motherfuckers will go to war
Right.
in order to hold on to office. Because we very rarely vote a president out of office when there's like a dire situation going on, especially anything like a freshly started war or anything like that.
Right.
That's how Bush got his second term.
Mm-hmm.
He went to war, and
Right.
that war kept him in office for his second term.
Right.
So it'd be interesting to see if Biden isn't willing to go there.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about, I remember hearing about something about a Russian plot to do like a false flag operation where they was going to basically attack some of their own people, so that would manufacture them to be aggressive towards Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, but Biden could very easily do the same thing. If he's looking at the upcoming election and thinking, oh shit, I can't win, because let's be honest, if you run a half decent candidate against him, doesn't matter whether it's Republican or the Democrat,
Mm-hmm.
you could beat him.
Right.
People voted against Trump, not for him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then if he's desperate enough, he could push those buttons and make shit happen.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd wind up going to war just so he could try to stay in office for another 4 years.
Everybody wants to give the big bully a black eye, you know.
Doing shit.
And,
knock the fuck off and give you
It's
credit.
one thing to deal with Afghanistan.
Yeah.
It's one thing to deal with Afghanistan. It's one thing to deal with Iran. It's one thing to even deal with, Saudi Arabia, because they have a war now going on in Yemen. But when you start talking about Russia, China, this is a whole different level. This is a whole different level. And to see these war games, if you will, or this show of force, and they're coming so close, now we're on a hair trigger. Like even the wrong move by anybody on any level can start an incursion. So I don't know, man. I'm really concerned about this. I really am.
Lavelle made an interesting comment. He said, with inflation at a high point, if the superpowers can draw the U.S. into a conflict, then our economy can be stretched. The cost of another war could cripple the U.S. economy.
So my whole thing is that was something that a family member of mine was saying. My family members sympathized with my friend in the intelligence community, saying that it was just all show and tell. But my whole issue regarding that is, if you look at the conditions that we have right now, in terms of like the pretext to war, this is exactly what it looked like in World War II. We were in a recession or a depression. World War II bombing of the Arizona prompted us to start getting out of that depression that we were in. So now that here we are, the world economy is failing. You have some rogue states now, and you also have this tension between China and America that's been brewing easily for about 30 years. Now it's all coming to a head, man. I wouldn't be surprised if they went on ahead and say, you know what, let's just do it. Now, how far would it go? I don't think it would go nuclear on no level. I really don't.
Yeah.
I think mutually assured destruction, it doesn't benefit anyone. But I think in terms of conventional warfare, I think we might go there, man. I just really believe we might go there. We got too many pieces in place.
That's what I was sitting here listening to, and I was thinking that exact same thing, man. Because everything y'all was saying, Biden and everything, man. I'm sitting here and I'm like, yeah.
It's a set
perfect.
stage.
It's the perfect.
Even if something happens by accident, all it's going to take is somebody to fire a missile at the wrong target. Oh wait, we was wargaming and we accidentally blew up that American ship, you know. Something simple like that, and and next thing you know, like I say, it's on.
So what's to stop one of them from getting my ass whooped? I'm using nukes. Fuck it.
They would have to.
You know?
They would have to threaten us domestically, to be honest with you.
Or we go into Russia.
But we,
After we take Ukraine, Russia's like, no, fuck that.
I don't think we would ever do
You
that.
don't think they would do that either?
No. History has shown us way too many times invading, trying to get to Moscow is a death sentence.
Oh, no, yeah.
From
you can't
Napoleon
get to
on
them.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a death sentence. Period.
You can give
No.
them, like, see
No.
what happens. They gonna do shit. They gonna say, okay, man, fuck it. Ukraine can't be NATO. Stop fucking around. They're gonna fight.
And what's interesting is I think some of us have we kind of have amnesia, because now we're seeing the importance of NATO. Trump wanted to have the U.S. to withdraw from NATO because we were absorbing the brunt of the cost of maintaining NATO. I can only imagine how this situation would look now if America was not a part of NATO. You understand?
Yeah.
Like that was a lot of rhetoric behind that, and here we are. We see the utility of it.
Yeah.
Here we are.
And I remember when he was real big on that subject for a while, thinking to myself, we can't do that. That would be horrible. And a scenario like this is exactly one of those reasons why I'm glad we never did actually take us out.
Trump was trying to appease his boy in Russia, man. That's why he
Oh, yeah.
made it to go away, because Putin would have loved it.
He got the P tape on him, man,
Yeah, right.
and
Do that for him.
Trump don't want that P tape to come out.
If it is a poker game, then I only have one observation and one concern. My observation is it makes sense because y'all have to remember, like when we was kids, man. Remember doing the drills in school where you like go in the hallway, kneel under something or whatever, because we was in the Cold War, we was trying to prepare for nuclear war, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Russia is nowhere near a world player, or hasn't been rather, a world player to that degree in about the last 25 years, roughly. Economy was failing, Russia been doing real bad. I think Putin now is trying to get them back on the world stage as a contender because all of the rhetoric lately has been a part of China. So I could see him posturing so that he can have some kind of influence again in that direction. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
My only concern is if this is again a poker game, the next time the stakes get this high, I'm afraid not the militaries but the citizens of these respective countries will not take it that serious, and that's when it'll go down.
Okay.
Because you're at a point now. I can't stress this enough. It's beyond theory. It's beyond political acumen. It's beyond history. You have world powers at each other's doorstep right now. This is not a game. You know what I mean? It really isn't. So I'm really concerned, man. I really am. Part of the sedition. No doubt. No doubt. No doubt. You know, speaking of which, you was the individual that thought it would be interesting for us to talk about the sedition issue here in America, man. What brought you to that conclusion, brother?
Well, for one, if you know anything about the history of the charge of sedition, really in the history of the country, it's only been ever actually charged, I think like 10 or 12 times, something like that. Okay. It's something that, and it's never actually been, nobody's ever actually been convicted of it.
Okay.
So it's interesting to me that the Department of Justice would decide to actually go for a sedition charge. Historically speaking, it's been super hard to prove. Right. And just for those who don't understand, when they talk about sedition, all that really means is the plotting against, taking actions that prevent the federal government from doing its appointed duties. That's literally what the charge of sedition means. What they did on January 6th, because they did interrupt the counting of the electoral votes and all of that, does count as sedition, and because it was pre-planned, and that's what the whole charge stems from, a sedition conspiracy. Mm-hmm. So they pre-planned it, and then they actually took actions to try to act it out. But to me, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because, like I said, historically speaking, that charge has never actually worked. Mm-hmm. I mean, you literally had a situation where now the Department of Justice, even though we all know how bad what happened that day was, has gone to a charge that they almost more than likely won't be able to prove. And I'm wondering, what's the point? What are you actually, are you really trying to get justice for this? Or are you just trying to make us think that you're trying to get justice for this? I mean, how hard are you really going to go after these guys? What they did was literally try to take over the country. That's what they tried to do. Whether or not they believed, the people involved, whether or not they believed what they were doing was the right thing is irrelevant. The actions were wrong. But when you look at the way that the justice system is treating it, I'm like, y'all still slapping these people on the wrist. Y'all haven't really done anything to them. Any of them so far. I mean, and this charge of sedition is that sounds like a big deal, but at the same time, when you look at the history of it, it's like what is actually going to come out of this? I'm wondering if this is just a shiny thing to keep us all looking at something else while they doing some other stuff. But that kind of ties into what we was talking about before.
Right.
If Trump don't go to jail, I'm not satisfied with whatever they do.
And
He needs to be the one locked
and
up.
I hope you feel real good with being unsatisfied, brother, because I don't think it's going.
That's
I
what
don't
I'm
think it's
saying.
going to happen. I don't think he'll ever see any actual punishment for the things he's done. But
Don't forget where we are. USA. This is what they do here.
But the whole sedition thing to me was just an interesting subject because, like I said, it makes me wonder what they might be trying to do. Are you really trying to seek justice? Because at this point, like I said, everybody who's been charged with something, it's been minor things, trespassing, unlawful conduct, vandalism, things like that. Even the ones who've gotten jail sentences, I think very few of them have gotten even multiple year jail sentences. Most of them sentences looking like months, But had that been a group of us, a group of any black or brown skin, minority, anything, doing the exact same actions, we'd have been buried.
Right.
It wouldn't have been no trial. It's just been funerals.
So now you're going to charge these dudes with sedition. They're not going to get convicted. And then what's going to happen? You can't double jeopardy them, so you can't go back and charge them for the same thing. You're going to have to try to do a whole new different trial. And it'll be after the midterms. So then if the Republicans take over any of the House or any of that stuff, you think that January 6th commission going to keep going?
No, but you make a really good point though, man, because when you talk about the sedition charge not sticking, and when you really look at what sedition means, it's actually like just the motivating of someone to rebel, basically. You know what I'm saying? And so all of those people that were out there, how can you even pin that specific charge to them? There's only a few people that, if I'm understanding the charge correctly and what sedition really is, there's only a few people that you can charge for that, and usually that's the speaker, the leader, or you know what I'm saying.
And that's the case.
The road dude, ain't that his name? The leader of the
you know what I'm saying.
the one that they got locked
But see,
up.
okay,
like you can see him. I can see him being
Can't go
charged
for
for that.
nobody else.
But unless
Well-
I'm understanding what sedition really means, I don't understand how you can charge all of those people out there.
Well,
for
a lot
that.
of the lower level people, they're not involved as far as the planning of the situation. So that's why the roads dude and most of the people who got charged were like leadership of the Oathkeepers.
Yeah.
It wasn't the rank and file members.
Yeah.
It was the people who were responsible for planning it, and that's really the thing. But they're the first group to get that particular charge. So it's like people are making a big deal out of it, but like I said, I'm just wondering what you're really trying to do with it. The sedition charge seems really serious. That's not something you hear about every day. But could you have been more successful if you had gone for something lesser? Charge them with, I have no idea what the alternatives might be as far as what the Department of Justice could charge. But I wonder if you could have more success by just changing that actual charge that they're getting.
Maybe there is no other charge that can go, so this is the only one we can try to get them on and hope it goes through.
But I get how they investigate. They go after the low level people, and they get them on the little things and get them to tell more and more and more, and they eventually work their way up the chain. But I don't know. It just seems like what are y'all really trying to accomplish?
Ain't that called the snitch system?
Yeah, that's
The snitch
informants.
You know?
Informants is the technical term.
No, we call it the snitch system.
So, I took some notes on this. To be honest with you, before I start, thank you so much for bringing this up because I was educated on things that I thought I knew.
Oh, okay.
I didn't. Sedition is being brought up on them. It's conspiracy because sedition basically starts out as if all 5 of us were to speak out against America and say America is doing X, Y, and Z, and we believe we should replace this government. That's not enough for charges of sedition.
Right.
That's protected under the First Amendment.
Right.
Yep.
So one of the things I hope we really talk about is, does this really apply? That's number one, the charges.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing, it became sedition conspiracy, as we all was talking before the show, when violence got involved.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of the keys to, if you're going to get him on sedition conspiracy, it is you can't go against the American government, preaching against the American government, and then also have either planning some type of violent act to overthrow the current state. So sedition conspiracy is a direct threat to the state. Okay?
Gotcha.
All right. I would have rather they stuck with insurrectionist. See, we forgot they was using that word during January 6th of last year. They kept using the word insurrectionist. When I understood insurrection, now I understood what the real issue was. Remember when they overran the Capitol? They was looking for the president. We need you to come out and say, hey man, go home. Stop doing this, or what have you. Trump came up missing in action, right?
Right.
Okay. Let me explain to you why they kept saying that. Insurrection involves violence towards the state, and only the U.S. Attorney General can bring charges of insurrection against the individuals.
Okay.
The U.S. Code, Title 10, Chapter 13, Section 254 allows the president to immediately order insurgents to disperse and retire peacefully to their abodes within a limited time period. If the insurrectionists don't comply, the president can utilize the military or National Guard to suppress civil disorder. That's the problem. That's why they kept saying, Donald Trump, we need you to speak.
Yeah.
I didn't know that that was a part of how the U.S. defines and deals with insurrectionists. Okay. But then the argument becomes, what if they feel, let's say these individuals that are oath keepers, let's just say they feel their cause is just. Now we understand the problem of misinformation, because the premise that they are operating from, they're stating, basically, long story short, our government has been hijacked.
Right.
So they are taking a patriotic stance in rushing the Capitol and using violence and armed means if necessary to overthrow to stop the peaceful transfer of power from Trump's administration to Biden's.
Right.
Because, again, whether it's true or not, that's not what we're discussing. We're discussing where they're coming from.
Right.
So if they're coming from the perspective that, hey man, our government has been hijacked, now they have this idea of martyrdom in their mind. They feel that they are patriotic because they're upholding the Constitution.
They're willing to put their lives on the line
You understand?
to fight for their
Exactly.
country. Yeah.
That's their whole bottom line premise, is to fight for the Constitution.
Exactly.
Everything should be done by the Constitution.
Exactly.
Which is why they feel what they did was perfectly legal
Absolutely.
and perfectly right. Because
Absolutely.
it says it in the Constitution.
Absolutely.
If you feel that the government is not acting in the best interest of the people, then the people have the right to remove that government.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't have a problem
Absolutely.
with them. If they doing it because of that, I'm good. But all them Trump flags and all that other shit, you're representing that man, not the country. That's
See,
why I have a problem.
But I really believe it was a mix of all of those type of people out there. You got some out there that were legitimately racist, and you had some people out there who legitimately was just out there in their mind.
They cheated.
This is not how the this is I'm doing what it's telling me I can do in the Constitution. You know what I'm saying? And they're doing it for those reasons. I'm not saying any of them were right. I'm saying where they were coming from in their thinking. You know what I'm saying?
That's what we're supposed to do.
Because some people look at all of them people out there because they was all out there following Trump, that they all was racist and all of them people out there wasn't racist people.
Oh, you had some true believers out there.
Right, that's all I'm saying.
You had some people
But
who
they don't
really
make them
bought
right.
into the story.
Right.
You know,
Right.
they bought into the lie. And I mean, right or wrong, there's always going to be a portion of humanity that falls for stuff like that.
So with what happened on January 6th, you had the Oathkeepers. That's who the main guys being charged with seditious conspiracy. So in doing research on this gentleman, he started, what was his name? I think you had said it earlier.
Something Rhodes?
Stuart Rhodes.
Yeah.
Stuart Rhodes started this around 2000 and I want to say 6 or 8, 7 or 8, something like that. He started it because when Barack Obama was made president, that was his motivation. Okay? Yeah, right. You know what I mean? All right, cool.
Okay.
And since then, he has built an entire organization with like about 10 different chapters or what have you. So when January 6th went down, I didn't know that the majority of the Oathkeepers were not in support of what they were doing on January 6th.
Really?
Yes. A lot of the Oathkeepers, and some of them were African American, they came forward and said, yes, we are not in agreement with what they did. Why would you do that? We are more about defending the Constitution. But the mere fact that you all are ready to become armed, make this an armed conflict, we're out. Because we're here for the preservation of the Constitution, if you will. If you're going to overthrow this government, you cannot do it with force because of the charges that are now being laid against you. So they didn't want to put their people in harm's way, if you will. Mm-hmm. They differed ideologically in terms of how they were to approach this particular issue. I did not know that.
Yeah.
What made it even more interesting was when they started talking to Stuart Rhodes and those individuals, and they found out, hey man, not only were you planning an overthrow, but you was ready to use violence, and you also had guns and escape plans and all this stuff surrounding the DC area, not in DC itself. The mere fact you were all gonna do this lets me know, hey man, you all are now insurrectionists.
Right.
It should go even beyond sedition conspiracy, because sedition conspiracy still talks about your intent and your motives, not what you did.
Yeah.
If you talk about insurrectionists, now you're talking about armed conflict against the state. If I'm not mistaken, a cop lost his life during that insurrection, if you will, on Capitol grounds.
Yeah.
Actually, he had a heart attack.
Heart attack?
Afterwards, I believe he was on the way to the hospital.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there was conflict with the cops or the police. That was the Capitol Police.
Several
correct?
dozen was injured.
They had guns on the
Yeah.
Capitol, correct?
Yeah.
They were shooting inside of the rotunda, correct? That's how one of the people had to, one of the, I guess you want to call them Oathkeepers or insurrectionists or whatever, one of the ladies was killed because the bodyguards, the protective services had to stop them from entering. You understand? So this became on. I think they should be, to your point, I think they should be labeled and tried as insurrectionists more than seditious conspiracy.
Yeah.
That tells me white folks looking out for white folks again. That's what that tells me.
And that's my point.
That's absolutely right.
That's my point.
And I never could understand, what are they talking about insurrection? Why do they keep bringing this term up? You know, and that's when I started research. I was like, oh, I understand now. I understand now.
But that also explains too why it was, like you were saying before, why it was so important as to what Trump was doing and where he was when all of this was going on.
Exactly.
When he went MIA. But that's, at least from what I understand about as far as the January 6th committee is concerned, they've gotten to the point now where they've gotten firsthand knowledge. They know where he was and what he's doing. Somebody in that inner circle has told them what was going on.
Right.
They who was it? Liz Cheney, I think it was, talked about it in an interview she did a couple of weeks back. Basically, she was talking about. She said point blank. She's like, we have firsthand knowledge. We've already taken the deposition of this person, and they have given us firsthand knowledge of where he was, and we know what he was doing. Now we just got to get. I guess they're at the point now where they just got to get more corroborating evidence and then boom, you might have a full blown case. But again, what are you actually going to do with it?
Right.
You know, because we see how you're treating even the people who participated on the ground level. You're not really going after them.
Something else I can help with.
So, interesting enough, y'all mentioned Roger Stone. Did y'all know he was present on January 6th?
Yes.
I saw the video.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
I didn't know that.
understand.
I did not know that. And even more so, they need to deal with him again, because part of the charges of sedition is not only are you speaking out against the government, but sedition becomes sedition once you start getting violent. If you see a neighbor or you have cause to know someone is performing sedition or has a sedition, if they're going to act in terms of against the state in a violent manner, you can be held up on the same charges as the individuals who actually committed it. So that's why it should have been, in my opinion, more than 400 individuals indicted for what happened on January 6th.
Yeah.
You understand? Because part of the rules of sedition as outlined by the Constitution, if you know this is about to happen, you are just as guilty if you don't report it to the notifying authorities. Well, hell, what happens when the authorities themselves are in on the act? That's how they got in.
Yeah.
A lot of the police that was there, they left the doors open.
Yeah.
They have proven that there have been individuals in law enforcement, in the military, that literally sympathize with their motivations and their acts.
Right.
The Oath Keepers
'Cause they're
themselves.
full of police officers and
Exactly.
The
military
Oath Keepers
and
themselves.
Good job, y'all. Come on in.
The Oath
Good
Keepers
job.
themselves, as a group, as an organization, they specifically recruit from active duty military, retired military, and police.
Sure.
That's who they recruit.
Absolutely.
So they got those people in their organization in spades.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But again, man, I think the bigger issue here is, I think it's bigger than January 6th. I think it's bigger than the Oath Keepers. My concern now is, just to go back in time a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
when you have an organization such as the Black Panthers that use the same rhetoric, how are we to expect the government to treat them? Because in this particular situation, you had a small group of individuals, Black Panthers, speaking for a large minority relative to the injustice of that system. So you would think that anyone that opposes the government and its unjust laws would have the moral high ground.
Right.
If these individuals did the same thing and we hold them in sedition, you've just opened up the door for people like the Nation of Islam, the new Black Panther Party, or anyone else that wants to challenge any unjust laws that are upheld by the U.S. government. And more often than not, they had a show of arms. That's when they went on the Capitol with the guns and all that kind of stuff. So I'm expecting to see more of a blowback against those friends groups than the militias that are in place now, such as this faction of the Oath Keepers that went out. I think that's the bigger narrative we really need to address, in my opinion.
No, I see what you're saying.
I see exactly what you mean, man. That's a good point, man. That's a really good point.
It really comes down to, like you said, them setting the stage as far as being able to say, oh, you know, okay, new Black Panther Party, y'all had some discussions or some conversations. We think those conversations, you know, because y'all were purchasing weapons and doing all this, y'all were planning sedition.
Right.
And we'll never get
Right.
that kind of organization going again.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's typically what happens. You know, that's an interesting point. Yeah, because
Stewart Rhodes, on his way from Texas to the Capitol, bought, I think, about $13,000 worth of arms. On his way there. They knew that.
oh, wow.
They knew that. 24 hours before it went down, Trump and his cabinet knew what was about to happen.
Yeah.
Because we have the text and the information going back and forth.
Right.
During the insurrection,
Right.
he knew what was going on
Right.
because we have the footage, well, not the
Right.
footage, we have the text of him arguing with Mike Pence
Yeah.
about, hey man, I need you on board with what's going on right now.
Right.
One of his aides, I think it was Stephanie Grisham.
Mhm.
She came out recently and said, I think it was either the day before or I've forgotten now, But basically, she was like he was having off the book meetings
Right.
at the White House residence.
Right, brother.
And she got in trouble with Melania because apparently at one of those meetings it was a time where she didn't get even though she didn't get the normal heads up, she said that she would get a heads up from somebody else,
Right.
you know, to let her know, hey, there's going to be people in the house.
Yeah.
And so Melania, she would have to let Melania know, hey, there's going to be extra people moving around or whatever. And, you know, one time that didn't happen, and Melania called her, fussing at her, hey, how come you didn't tell me these people's in my house?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And she's like, well, shit, I didn't know, because they doing this shit off the record.
Right.
They're not supposed to be here.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like now we know all of this stuff. And who was that? Somebody just said something about it was LaBelle. He said, maybe you already said it, but is treason really the ultimate goal? And he had talking about Trump.
Okay. I'm glad he brought up treason. No. So I also had to research treason.
Yeah.
And so here's treason. It only applies with the Constitution in Article 3. Shall consist only, that's our operative word, only. Shall consist only in levying war against them or adhering to their enemies. The framers of the Constitution intended charges of treason would not become politicized. Americans can't be guilty of levying a war because we're individuals. You understand?
Right.
Treason, you have to be in talks or in communication with another nation, state, or organization that you are currently at war with or we have already deemed as an enemy. If this nation state is not deemed as an enemy, you cannot be held as an individual upon charges of treason. The reason that the framers of the Constitution did it that way was because when we overthrew the crown during 1776, we were acting in treason.
Yeah.
We were treasonous. So they made the Constitution very, very limited and specific in terms of what actually constitutes treason.
Okay.
That's why treason never, ever was part. These white boys know their stuff. That's why it was never really a main end game for them to bring Trump up on charges of treason. We were not at war with Russia.
Yeah.
Russia was not an enemy of ours at that time. You understand?
Right.
If it happened now, got a different issue.
Right.
But at that time, no, he was not guilty of treason. No.
All right, Jim, y'all want to keep going? I think we got 5 minutes.
Yo, should we show everybody our new thing? Play it one time?
Oh, yeah, man.
Go out with
Play what?
our thing.
Thank you for that.
Oh, I
man.
thought
Thank
you
you so
opened
much
it
for
with
that.
that.
Oh,
But
That's
there was
a-
nobody there. We got all these people
Oh,
over there.
so
Now
what
we're in
I'm
here
saying.
so they
I'm
can start
okay.
sitting it. Yeah,
Oh, you
so
okay.
y'all can check it out.
You got it,
Into
man.
outro.
You got it.
So let's see, we didn't go on until like 7:20.
Yeah, so we got a little time. I mean,
I'm trying to get in
y'all
y'all.
want to talk about something else, or you got more to say about that?
Man, I really don't. Other than I came across a really hell of a quote, y'all, that I think that really, really speaks to the climate of our country right now. Dude, it was by President Truman, and he said, once a government is committed to the principle of silencing the voice of opposition, it has only one way to go, and that is down the path of increasingly repressive measures until it becomes a source of terror to all of its citizens and creates a country where everyone lives in fear. I thought that was a hell of a quote.
Yeah.
That is exactly the atmosphere that we live in.
Right.
That is exactly where we are. That's why I personally, now I may be wrong on this, I do not have a problem with militias. I do not have a problem with the aim or the fundamental principles of the what do they call it, the Oathkeepers? Because I'm gonna be real with you. The citizens, armed citizens, we are the last front or resort to resist our country that hardly any other country can boast. We are the last line of defense if our country ever gets more corrupted and more repressive towards its citizens. No, we would never win an armed conflict against our own military. Get that out your head right now.
Right.
On every level. but at least we can put up some type of fight. That's why I'm all about, if you want a gun, you're in the best place on the planet. You need a gun. Because if we got invaded, you still have to deal with a 300 million man standing army. If you get past the National Guard, if you get past the military. When it turns inward, if our military becomes corrupt or goes rogue, you have an armed civilian population that can show some type of resistance. So in terms of like militias and all of that, I don't agree with some of their racist ideologies. But in principle, in terms of their preservation of the Constitution, it doesn't get any more Roman than this.
Right.
It gets no more Roman than this. I'm all about it.
I could agree with that because I like I said, like you said, brother, I don't necessarily agree with some of the ideologies behind the organizations, but the reason for the organizations,
Right.
I'm on board with.
Right.
I can understand it.
Right.
It definitely it's one thing to have people with guns,
Right.
but it's another thing to have people with guns with training.
Absolutely.
You know, and
Absolutely.
that's really what the idea of the militias are. It's like, okay, yeah, you might have a gun. Okay, I got a little, 22 to protect my house in case somebody break in. But if somebody really broke in, would you know how to use it?
Right.
Would you know, do you even clean your gun? Do you
Right.
know how to handle an actual firearm? What if the person who breaks in got a gun? Then what you gonna do?
Right. Right.
But these are all things that, as these militias form, that's the basis of it. I'm going to teach you these skills. I'm going to show you these things so you'll be able to defend yourself if it ever becomes necessary. Or, and some go, even further with the being able to take care of your own food supply and all of this kind of stuff. And you have some who really go extreme with
Absolutely.
the bunkers and, all this kind of stuff and food stocks and all of this. But the principle behind them, yeah, totally get it.
John, you let me tell you how on point you are, man. That was an interview posthumously released after Dick Gregory passed. And
okay.
Dick Gregory, basically in so many words, was saying, man, I knew the revolution was over when in the 70s, at that time, you had enough individuals that were a part of the military and had been honorably, dishonorably charged. You had a lot of pilots. You had individuals that knew how to, drive tanks. You had individuals that understood guerrilla warfare because they were taught by the U.S. military. When they were discharged, those were the individuals the black movement at that time should have taken advantage of, because now you have people that were on the inside that knows how it goes. So if at any given point in time you wanted to put up some type of armed revolution or resistance, you have the individuals in place that can help put forth that assault.
Right.
When that didn't happen, and we just sat back and said, hey, I got my DD-214, I got my military benefits and my health benefits, I'm good, whatever. At that point, it was over.
Yeah.
At that point. That is what the militias are capitalizing on.
Mm-hmm.
They're using that knowledge, they're using that expertise from individuals that are or were in the military to help train their civilian population in terms of guerrilla warfare.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, no, you're absolutely dead on. I agree, brother. Absolutely.
Last statement, I gotta cut you off.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. This is Brother Lowe's. Thank y'all, man. I'm sorry, man. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, good conversations, my brothers. Good conversation, man.
Definitely.
Appreciate y'all for hanging in there. I know we came in a little bit late, but we got it going. And we got everything taken care of. Brother Bobby over there hooked everything up.
It's the price of trying to do new things. So there's nothing wrong with that. These are just the growing pains.
You the man, Hood.
Hey, man, but we are about to unveil the intro for the show going forward. All right?
Right.
So y'all sit
premiere.
back, relax. Hope y'all like it, and y'all will be seeing this every time we come on.
Right.
So it's your boy Big Ruck,
Brother Los.
Brother Ron.
Brother Jam.
Your boy Bishop.
and we are the Daily Smoke. We appreciate y'all and love y'all, and we are out. Peace.
We